As I'm sure some of you who have seen my videos before can attest to, I am an atheist, and some of you have even called me a militant atheist. However, I think I'm just a reasonable person who likes the things I believe in to be true. This is normally a prerequisite for me if I'm to believe something. I require positive evidence to support any positive affirmation of belief I may be inclined to have. However, that's not why some of you call me militant. I imagine it's probably my willingness to engage with those who promulgate ignorance, stultify the young in their churches, reject science and facts, offer false consolation to the sick, dying and grieving, and generally poison the minds of the people they feed with their nonsense. I challenge this because I don't think it makes the world any better. I don't believe the holy books are true, and because the proponents of this Dark Age philosophy that has led to the death and misery of countless people don't have a shred of evidence that it's actually true. So essentially, from my perspective, the consequences and costs of religion are far too high a price to pay for what is, in my mind at least, a poor guess about how the universe works. So with that said, if caring about the quality of other people's lives and the overall health of society makes me militant, then so be it. If that's what a militant is, then I am a militant. Now, I normally make videos for people who have a similar disposition to me. However, today I'd like to talk to atheists and agnostics and even religious folks that are not militant and can see positive benefits in religion and would even sometimes identify themselves as a member of religion because they think it enhances community or has good social effects. They're the people I'd like to talk to today. Now, for those people who are watching who are inclined towards that disposition, you may wonder why on earth I opened with what I dislike about religion if I want to talk to people like yourself. And the reason is very simple. I don't want to be condescending and pretend that I agree with you. For example, you might think that religion has some positive social benefits, and I would certainly agree to an extent. I would only have to look at my grandmother's community to see a religious community, heavily Roman Catholic, living in harmony and decency together. It's not religion that causes this community cohesion, it's the community itself. Religion just happened to be a centre point where these people could gather and exchange ideas and make good friends, but it can be done purely by secular means. Anybody who looks at the sociological literature or the scientific study of religion will draw the same conclusions. So my point is this: religion clearly can have some positive social benefits, such as community, but these things can be achieved by a purely secular society as well. There is no need for the assumptions about how the universe works or who's going to burn in hell and so on and so forth. Anybody who looks at any index of social well-being or health will see that atheistic societies are just as healthy as religious, if not more healthy than religious societies. My point is not to suggest that atheism will make a society better or religion will make a society worse. There are multiple variables that add to social well-being. But if, as some people do, want to say that religion is the only thing that will improve a society or social cohesion, or as some would think that religion is a valuable variable in this equation, I can flatly say that you are wrong. All of these effects can be achieved purely by secular means, and this has been shown time and time again. Look at any index of social well-being or social health, cross-compare atheistic societies to religious societies, and the only conclusion you can draw is that the positive benefits in a society can be derived purely from secular means. So with that considered, I'd like you to think about the upcoming census. If you're not religious, please say so. Admitting that you're not religious is not going to cause our society to somehow crumble and become a Sodom and Gomorrah. Now, I get why a lot of people would tick the yes, I'm a Christian box, or yes, I'm a member of the Roman Catholic Church. Your parents or grandparents might be Christian, your family and friends are probably Christian, and you were probably brought up in a Christian community just like me. However, that's not the question. It's not what is your friends and family's religious disposition, what religion were you raised in, or what is the cultural disposition generally speaking. The question is, are you a member of a religion? Or for most of us in this country, are you a member of the Roman Catholic Church? So with that considered, I'm going to focus on Catholicism as it's the dominant religion in this country. So understand something, if you tick the Roman Catholic box in the census, you're not identifying yourself socially or culturally with your friends and family. You're identifying yourself as a member of the Roman Catholic Church, and that is a drastically different thing. So my question to you is this: do you want to be associated with the Catholic Church? Let's give you some background on the Catholic Church. Think about the Pope's apologies in 2000. Think about Bishop Marini on March the 12th, 2000, when he said that due to the sheer number of sins committed by the Church, all reference to them would have to be treated in summary. Give you a taste of what was on that list. Think about this: the Crusades, the Inquisition, the persecution of Jews, injustice and cruelty towards women, forced conversions of indigenous people around the world, the African slave trade, the admission that Galileo was correct, and for silence during Hitler's final solution, the rape and torture of orphans and other children entrusted to their care in almost every country in the world. These admissions are horrific, and no amount of apology or reparations can ever make it right for the victims. Remember, this is the same church that openly preached anti-Semitism up until 1964. Ask yourself, do you think it's possible that this might have something to do with public opinion in Germany at the time? Was the anti-Semitic preaching the reason they shied away from condemning Hitler, or as they used to say, let the blood of Christ be on the head of the Jews to the remotest generation? Now, some of you could actually forgive the Catholic Church for this. I'm not one of them, but you need to understand right now that there will come a time when the Catholic Church has to apologise again for things it is doing right now. This church has to apologise for Rwanda, the most Catholic country in Africa, where genocide was preached from the pulpits and on the radio stations. Today, priests, nuns and bishops are on trial for inciting genocide. But it gets better. For example, Thomas More, who was an inquisitor who burned people alive for daring to read the Bible in English, was made a saint by the last pope.
I beg of you, acknowledge your sins.
Now, do you agree with that? Do you think Thomas More is the pinnacle of human morality? Is he the lofty peak of human decency? If you tick the census box and say that you're a Roman Catholic, that's exactly what you're saying. Can you honestly say that you believe this church exists to disseminate the word of God across the planet? People murdered and tortured, put on the rack and burned alive for owning a Bible in English. That just screams of someone who wants to get gentle Jesus' meek and mild message to humanity, doesn't it? This church is responsible for the death of countless people in the past, the misery of countless people in the past, and the death and misery of countless people today. Now, I understand that your family and friends are not bad people and wouldn't do any of these things, but understand on the census, if you tick the Catholic Church box, you're not supporting your family and friends, you're supporting the Catholic Church. And with that, you're supporting all the baggage and savagery and misery that goes along with this repulsive and disgusting institution, this blight on humanity. Look, if any of you are still considering ticking the Catholic Church box in the census, allow me to ask you a few questions about what you believe, and these are directly linked to Catholic Church policy at present. For example, do you hate homosexuals and agree with discriminating against them? Do you believe they're morally disordered and intrinsically evil individuals, as the Pope suggested? Do you think AIDS victims should only be given proper medical care if they convert to Christianity and refuse to use condoms? Do you think condoms and safe-sex products are bad? Are you obsessed with the sex lives of other people? Do you think it's okay to go to the poorest countries in the world, where some of the most uneducated people in the world live, and basically lie to them by saying that condoms increase the incidence of AIDS? Do you think Pope Ratzinger is infallible? What about when he contradicts other popes? Is he still infallible? Do you think it's okay to attempt to cover up the child rape cases all over the world? Do you think men are better than women and that only a man is capable of running a parish? Is it acceptable to you to store up wealth and art treasures from countries which you've plundered, while simultaneously preaching morality and decency to the people you've just robbed? One has to draw parallels to the Jesus story. I'm pretty sure he lived in a big fuck-off palace full of art treasures too. Would you dare approach someone and demand that they love you? Would you dare approach someone and demand that they love you whilst commanding them to be terrified of you, as the church preaches? Do you think that the truths in the doctrine of the Catholic Church are eternal as they claim? If so, can you please explain to me why these are changed so often? After all, if they're divinely inspired and eternal, they should remain unchanged, surely. Imagine for a moment that you are actually the Catholic Church. Anthropomorphisize. Now imagine that someone had brought all the concerns listed to your attention. Do you think it would be a valid justification to provide fleeting references to your charity work in the hope that it would exonerate your actions in the past and present? Imagine for the sake of argument that you did find this acceptable. Would it still be acceptable to you if the same individual pointed out that all these benefits can be achieved purely by secular means without all the baggage, suffering and misery that goes along with the magic? Now, I could keep going at this literally all day, but I'm going to stop now because, to be honest, thinking about what the Catholic Church promulgates on a daily basis makes me sick. It actually depresses me, so I'll leave you with them thoughts on the Church for now and we'll move on. If you didn't answer those questions in the positive, you're probably not a Roman Catholic. If you did, well then you're perfectly in line with church doctrine. If you're a Christian, I'd love to ask you, what do you think Jesus would make of this institution? Do you think Jesus would even be accepted into this institution, or do you think they'd boot him out on his ass? So look, my point is this: forget the nostalgic view of communities in Ireland from the 40s and 50s. You need to ask yourself seriously, do you want to promulgate this institution? And understand, you're not just supporting your family or your community locally here, but by lending credence to this barbaric institution. Do you really want this institution to get more funding to spread more misery and death to the ignorant and poor of the world? Okay, so we're going to leave it at that, and I hope you give it a little bit of thought before you tick the box, or hopefully don't tick the box. Just to say really quickly to any Christians or Catholics who may come across this video, I have no problem with you personally as an individual, or even with your positive affirmations of belief. It would be impertinent and just rude of me to suggest that the barbaric atrocities committed by the Church historically and presently are somehow your fault. They're not. I just hope that you consider that your membership in this church lends credence when they say, as they often do, we own 1 billion souls. Reduce that number. Please consider it. You can still believe in God without being a member of this church. Thank you for watching.